How's it going, everyone? This is your brother Zun, and I am sharing my inward conversations to the Forever family and anyone who will listen, for that matter. For this share, I want to talk about boredom. And what I actually did was take the G from goat and combine it with whoredom. This idea and thought stems from chapter 17 and verse 7, when it talks about the people sacrificing to goats. And that got me thinking, simply because of the fact that nowadays that term is thrown around and it is meant to stand for the greatest of all time. Now, if that's the case, I've been the greatest of all time before it was popular, since the mid-90s. This is the story on that. So growing up, everybody has nicknames, and I believe this was my second name on the streets. The first one is going outside playing football, and I was known as Cheetah. Needless to say, when I see Tyreek Hill, who's now a Miami Dolphin, he's known as the Cheetah, I took a little offense. No, I'm kidding, of course. Simply because I was just the fastest one of the shorties that I grew up with. There were people about my age, maybe a year older, I can think of two as I'm saying this, that were much faster than me. But that was the nickname I got. And afterwards, and that was really, just playing football in the street. But when I started dipping into like street life, hanging out and whatnot, that was what I was known by. Goat. And it bothered me. I didn't really like it. After a while, you tend to accept things, especially I was trying to fit in. No value to myself. I didn't know my self-worth, and so I just allowed it. Over time, however, and this is years and years and years, as the Lord began to deal with me, this all started to change. Not only my self-worth, but also, and I guess they go hand in hand, my value to God. God started showing me how much and how valuable I was to Him and am to Him, I'd like to think. And this began to shape and transform my idea of my value and self-worth. And one thing I believe is that as I continue to grow in God, I continue to learn of Him, it helps my value to increase. In any sense, particularly the scripture when it talks about on the last days when God is putting the goats on His left hand and His sheep on His right. And everyone found on His left, i.e. the goats, will be cast away into darkness, eternal hellfire, away from Him forever. And I didn't want to be associated with anything that God wants nothing of. And so it was at that point I began to shun that moniker. I don't know if this is interesting or not, but now that I have a little hindsight and clarity of mind, I've started to realize that part of the reason why I was being devalued or allowing myself to be devalued was because I had the false impression of the people I wanted to be around held me in high regards, which of course they didn't. I've touched on that before, that I was really a means to an end. I thought I was trying to fit in, and I was doing what I could to fit in, and basically whoring myself out to fit in, to individuals and people and circumstances that weren't really feeling the same way. One of the instances is, I'll give you two. I began kind of, I guess I wouldn't say, maybe hanging out with a different crowd, but another crowd moved in, and this individual who, I would say, not to take anything away from him, a leader in their own right, doing their own thing. I would say, really street dudes, really about that life. I guess for whatever reason, and I figure it was ego or whatever, again, thinking differently, because I just wanted to be down, and little did I know, they must have taken it as a threat to them and their rep or whatever. They didn't like the moniker GOAT. And I realized because it connotated the greatest of all time. Now, I will say this, that when that name was given to me, it wasn't meant in that sense. It was meant to degrade, be derogatory. It was basically they were calling me a name. And I won't tell you how it fit, but that's ultimately what the purpose of that name was, to diminish my value, so to say. And that's why no one at that point had any angst to call me that. In fact, it was well known or celebrated, because again, truly, I was on the bottom of the totem pole when it came to pecking order of personality, popularity, and things of that nature. I was on the fringes, But in any case, so, I started getting familiar with another crowd, and that's how I was known on the streets. And for whatever reason, and again, I assumed that it was okay. There can only be one greatest of all time, so to say. And so this individual proceeded to change what I was known by to something else. So amongst I won't get too specific, another group, I'm known by something different. Another instance, I was actually working somewhere and met someone from my past who only knew me as GOAT, did not come in contact with this other circle of people whose, and I say with air quotes, leader decided to change what I was known by to a more generic term. I'll say that much. Again, which still did not fit, wasn't aligned with the truth. It did not fit. But in any case, my self-worth was very low, non-existent, I would say, and so that's what it was. In any case, I saw this individual, and it was interesting because as soon as they saw me, I thought they didn't recognize me because, we were masked up and whatnot. But as we continued in the conversation, I, sought to help him out. It came to be, mentioned that this individual did recognize me. And it was interesting because she refused to call me by what she knew me as. She didn't address me at all, and I say loosely by name. And I started realizing it is because that term is now associated with greatness, and I'm saying that loosely as well. And so the true colors are coming out again, that they weren't really for me. And the refusal of trying to build me up by any means is the modus operandi. And saying all that, I don't hold any hard feelings or ill intentions, you know. I believe by speaking the truth, you're just making it plain. What I will say is, as the definition evolved and looking at my life, I would say that this same thing that was meant to destroy me, it actually brings me comfort in a way. Sort of like the brothers of Joseph. Now, of course, I don't claim anything great, but I do believe in the great God. And the comfort that I take is that what they had labeled me with as a means to devalue and destroy and degrade and diminish me, whether adding to or taking away, I take comfort in the fact that there was greatness always in me. And it took my enemies to point that out. Even though now there's the refusal to even make mention of it. As I say that, I say a smile because it's like a gleam in this coal that is, I pray, becoming a beautiful gem for the Lord. Now that is really just the little background that takes me into the main idea about this whole greatest of all time concept. Now don't get me wrong, I do shun it, and that's why there are no hard feelings. I would even go as far to say is that I was living like a barnyard animal. More specifically, according to what God says, something dark and demonic. Because that's what God equates the goat to. The demonic. Again, he says the goats are on his left. And I believe that's for a few reasons, but the biggest reason I believe is because pride is involved. The greatest of all time, I think that's reserved only to the greatest beyond time, the maker of time. God is the greatest. I've seen the futility of that thought is, no matter how good someone is, someone always comes along and does something more remarkable. That's the great thing about life and existence, is that things continue to grow and get better. And I say that loosely as well. Take, for example, you have the debate of Michael Jordan and LeBron James a lot of times, as well as others. Is one greater than the other? Maybe different accomplishments, but is one greater? Look at siblings. A parent may have children, and one may be very talented at something and the other's not, but they have their own talents. Is one greater than the other? I say all this to really express my feelings that I believe that this is a trick of the enemy. The enemy is so cunning and slick and deceiving that he makes the lie seem like the truth. I thought about that, in the beginning when he tempted Eve. The devil really did, and I say this loosely, speak the truth when he quoted God and said, "If you eat, you will surely die." He actually did speak the word correctly. It was Eve that came back and left the word surely out and just said, "We will die." And I had thought about that during that treatment. It was like, Lord, if he's the father of lies and the truth is not in him, he did speak the truth. And I realized my revelation on that was the motive and intention behind it is not truthful. He may say something that is correct, but everything he does and says is ultimately to deceive, to trap, to destroy, to hurt. And so I believe that this labeling of the greatest of all time is really a demonic trick, putting this wretched and cursed label. And this takes me to the title and the topic of the message, Goredom. It's basically the whoredom of the goat, where now everyone is striving and claiming and hoping and worshiping, in a sense, the greatest of all times, the goats. And no one really has any reservations or anything and welcoming that title. And I believe it's damaging because unbeknowingly, if that's a word, well, it's a word because I said it, and I'm, hashtag unbeknowingly trademark. But there is a deceptive labeling going on where, in a sense, we're worshiping the demonic with this term that is disguised as something good. My experience is that is the modus operandi of evil, the dark one, the fallen ones. It is this disguise, it is this guise of the best, or goodness, or fun, or pleasure, or everything we want. But it's really just a front for the pit that lays just ahead or behind. I heard, and I'm trying not to dive too deep into the interweb, because it really is a web, and getting tangled up in it is not a good thing. Because it's basically, just everyone has a space to say whatever, and it could be a lot. But briefly, I ran across, I think, someone talking about, and I don't want to say specific, so I'll say someone speaking on the tragedies that just happened. And I believe now, the buzz is gun control and all these things. And my personal opinion is just that, a personal opinion, is that, again, it is a dark trick. Because instead of focusing on the root of the problem. It is not a inanimate object. How can guns be to blame when they don't, as far as I know, shoot themselves? It's like a drunk driver getting behind the wheel and foolishly doing so under the influence and destroying another life and putting the vehicle on trial, or talking about we need to have car control, when really it is the human being. So I believe that this whole labeling of the greatest of all time has deeper implications, where it is the sense of, and I guess I'm getting off the subject, but I think it's all in the dark pool, is live how you want, do how you want, no restrictions, no rules. What do we expect in a society where they're trying to blur the lines between genders? They're trying to take out disciplines, and we start in the beginning where God says, follow my rules to live. There must be certain lines, there must be certain things that remain in place for society in order to be maintained. We are raising a generation of bastards. Children were created and designed by the master to come up in a household between a loving mother and father, united in matrimony with a marriage bed that's undefiled. So when that structure is broken down and we're having all of these bastard children out of defiled beds and shared parenthood, in this, when brokenness is starting at the foundation, it's only gonna leak over into our society. But then we're putting these labels on there that really, in my opinion, have demonic undertones. You know, we're not calling sin sin anymore. We're not calling wrong wrong anymore. We're not calling right right anymore. We're not giving praise to the one true God anymore. And I believe that's what's equating to an existence, I would say, that is the worst it's ever been. And it's so interesting to me that in a day and age that is, again, the worst I've ever seen, there are so many so-called greatest of all times. Only Jesus can save us. But I am confident that as God lives, there is hope. As the everlasting, eternal God lives, there is love that knows no end. And I am confident that as He lives, through Him, it will be well if we find ourselves on His right side. Caption this. Bah! That's a sheep, by the way. Sir.